So that was a clip showing Sam Howell getting sacked a few times. He got sacked several times in the Giant game, but great audio there on the sidelines with the defensive line coach telling the guy, shock him with your hands and go, shock him with your hands and go. And then we see Leonard Williams, the big cat, just going right up the middle and sacking Sam Howell. So Giants get a win. This is a podcast where we're going to talk about the Giants recap. We're going to talk about the Jets game. Got a lot of questions. We got pet peeves, a full slate. We are the Three Angry Giant Fans. It's your host, Scott, Giant Mike, Cardone, and Jet fan Novak. Guys, it's good to be back after a win. We'll talk about how much of a great win it was, but hey, bad wins matter too.
God, I'm curious. I enjoyed the clip at the beginning. Now, what season was that from?
Was it a Parcells soundbite?
Yeah, that was. I think that was from the Parcells.
Coughlin,
era.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We doubled our sack total in one game.
Yeah. I tell you what was nice was seeing the other quarterback running for his life and feeling a jailbreak on those passing downs and such. That was amazing. Giant D-line finally woke up. So that was my highlight of the day, man. Just to see us getting after it. And you knew it in the first quarter, the first couple drives, man. We were getting after it. That looked like the defense from last year, at least, there from a couple games that we saw that defense shine last year. So it was great to see. For some reason, guys, we always get off the schneid with Washington, do we not? We grab a win from them. If you're these Redskin football team / Commander fans, whatever you want to call them, like they've got to be just disgusted with the New York Giants because they manage to lose to us every year, no matter what kind of season we're having.
I mean, that has been true, Cardone, as long as I can remember. It's the Redskins, the Commanders, whatever they are now. They are the get right game for the Giants. It just always happens. And you're right. I often think, like, after the game, I'm like, what are Redskin fans or Commanders fans thinking about that game right now? I mean, they must be like, what the hell? This is an epically terrible team that scored 14 points and beat us.
They can beat the Eagles at least once a year, and they can't beat this Giant team. It doesn't make sense.
You guys called them the Commanders and the Redskins. I'm looking at their uniforms. There is absolutely nothing, sidelines, anything that denotes that they're the Commanders. They have a W on their helmet. It doesn't say Commanders anywhere, does it?
It might say it on their.
I don't think it does.
Does it? I thought it might say it on their. Yeah, their lapel or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's so invisible. It's so nondescript that we don't even notice it.
I'm pretty convinced that they're not totally buying into this name change because they're looking for the right time to go back. I thought that's what the WFT was all about. The Washington football team. I really think because there's some momentum now. I think they're actually being sued by a Native American group who's saying that guy on your helmet was our tribe leader, our chief,
right,
and we want him back. So I think there's a little momentum that to come back as the Redskins, or maybe just something Indian related if they feel like that name is so offensive. And I think the people there in Washington are just hedging their bets. Like, let's not make a logo and pay all that money. Let's just get a little W, just put Commanders here, and we'll just see how these things flesh out.
You know what their helmet looks like? Their helmet looks like when you see a commercial and they don't have the rights to show the NFL trademark. It looks like a made-up fucking logo. Do you know what I mean by that, guy? Like, where it's like either a print ad, back in the days when, or Activision or something like that. One of those knockoff video games where they didn't have the rights to show the true trademark. They just put a logo up there. That's what their W looks like, a knockoff to like an NFL trademark.
Totally like a fantasy football logo.
It's right. Novak. Right. It looks like a made-up fantasy football logo, just like some, just a suggested icon for your fantasy football team.
Suggested icon.
I think we know where our intern Darren went. He went to the industrial design department in the Commanders.
Yeah, he's the guy who made our logo. Actually, made the Commanders logo.
Right.
He works at Vista Press.
Vista Press. I think that's where I did the logo. Actually.
Of course it is.
Unbelievable.
All right. So before we get into the football, and well, we're not even into the football now, but let's give a shout out. So, hello, Redmond, Washington. It's a suburb of Seattle, and it's known as the home of Microsoft and Nintendo America. And the origins of Redmond. So Luke McRedmond, he claimed the land in 1870. But settlers then named the place Melrose after like a Melrose Inn that was there. So this angered Luke McRedmond, who had claimed that land. So he ran and was elected the postmaster. And then once he was postmaster, he changed the name to Redmond in 1883. It's also the home of Johnny Hecker, the punter.
Very good. I was going to say, do we have any Giant fans there, or any what's our Giants connection? Postmaster General?
I think the connection to Redmond is that Geno Smith fans from his Giant days are still listening to us.
That's the only one I can come up with. I'm surprised they haven't been forced to change their name. Redman. I mean that's. I mean St. John's had to change their logo.
John's.
Redmen. I mean
that's
it's
right.
only one letter off.
Ever since that Seattle game, the downloads from that area of the country have been off the charts.
Especially on YouTube.
YouTube is out of control.
YouTube's out of control. By the way, we thank all of our supporters, all of our listeners, all of our video downloaders. Whatever reason you're doing it, hey, we like it.
I'm sorry. I don't know if you guys heard it this way too. I thought Scott just said we fake all of our downloaders. I was like, you're not supposed to tell them that.
No, I'm thanking.
Thanking. I heard you. I got
you. So, guys, Giants won the game, got the W. It was ugly, but there were some bright spots. The defense played well, second game in a row. Banks had his first career interception. He played really well. We got after Sam Howell. We got a lot of sacks. But the offense still is not performing well. And this is the thing. There's a groundswell of people who want to replace Jones with Tyrod. And you know what? I understand that, but some of the reasoning is just like because the offense is more fun to watch. And that's really what it boils down to, because the offense isn't really that more productive, where you have 23 points in 2 games. And in this last game, we were 1 for 15 on third down. And we scored 2 out of the 14 possessions that we had. We scored 14 points. And people are acting as if Daniel Jones couldn't have done that.
Yeah, that's of course the quarterback controversy. People just they're obsessed with it, right? And so you knew this was coming even after last week when with the Buffalo game, which was a loss, but nonetheless we were in the game and Tyrod Taylor. I said it last week where my takeaway from last week with Taylor's play and then again on Sunday is that we have a very, very capable backup. So this bullshit about the controversy, that's media. That's just fans being fans. It's Jones is the quarterback. He's obviously, when he's healthy, I think he's already ruled out for Sunday. Is that what we heard? I think. I've
heard he's not been cleared for contact yet. I didn't hear anything about his status for this Sunday yet.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know. I mean, and here's the thing. We'll talk about this a little bit later. But I mean, guys like Andrew Thomas and Barkley missed 4 games. Why weren't they put on IR? Why not just put Daniel Jones on IR? I mean, I don't get it.
I don't know. Maybe we don't know the extent of, I guess, when he's going to be cleared. But you're right, Scott. It's a good point. I wasn't thinking about that. I'm like, just put the guy on IR if he's going to be missing this much time. So I don't know. But as far as the quarterback controversy, I don't even think about that. Jones, when he's healthy, he's going to be plugged right back in there. And then now if Jones performs really poorly when he comes back, and then we'll get more of a sample size of what's going on and those kinds of things. But for now, keep the quarterback controversy at rest. Leave it for the media. Leave it for the paper. Or leave it for the headlines. It doesn't belong on our pod here. It's not. I'm not going to entertain a quarterback controversy after 2 games. Just not. No, it's not necessary.
Agree. Yeah, totally agree. And all you got to do is ask yourself this: if Daniel Jones had played quarterback in these last 2 games, and he put up the exact same stat lines, and the 2 games had the exact same score and turned out exactly the same, would these people be convinced that Daniel Jones is back? after those 2 games? Like,
Great point.
would they be like, yeah, all right, Jones, he's playing well now. Good. This is good. No, they'd be burying him. How do we only score 14 against the Commanders? Our defense playing that well. How do we only put up 9 against Buffalo? That game, we had that game on the, so there's no people, these fans who do this only see wins and losses. That's the only thing they see. And sometimes that's appropriate, but it's not appropriate in this case. This is Washington. We would have beat them if we had Mike Glennon in this game.
Whoa.
The neck.
No,
Right.
don't
One step
get
too
crazy.
far. I'm sorry. I got nuts there.
You're really sticking your neck out on that one.
Stuck it way out there. I'll say this. There are things that are different right now than when Jones was playing. And I know people would say, well, they're different because Jones isn't playing. But we are making a concerted effort these last 2 games, twice a half, to throw a deep ball to Hyatt.
Well, and keep in mind, too, Hyatt has just started to get more snaps in the last 2 games because they basically benched Paris Campbell.
Yep.
So when Jones was in there, Hyatt was playing like it was a ridiculous number, like 11 to 15 snaps a game.
Yeah, they brought him in there specifically just to try to throw the ball to him, and we didn't have enough time to get the ball to him in most of those plays. So, yeah, that's a great point, Scott. The other thing is, we seem to have, because Washington's defensive line is not a slouch defensive line. Buffalo's defensive line is not a slouch defensive line. We seem to have kind of tripped and fallen due to injuries and everything into a serviceable offensive line here. They still suck. But it's not cut your throat jailbreak every play these last 2 games.
I will say this. So one thing I noticed, it seems like Darren Waller has been getting a good number of targets the last 2 weeks. His numbers from Sunday, seven catches, 98 yards. And of course he had that seam touchdown, which by the way came on a 3rd and long there. So that was a huge touchdown to make it 7-0, which by the way was our first offensive touchdown at home in the first half first offensive
touchdown in the first half all year.
Yeah. So just that was, which is a joke, right? We at least we broke some of those ridiculous statistics, but and then Waller had a number of targets. I don't have it in front of me, guys, but the week before in Buffalo. So maybe there's something going on a little bit with Taylor and Waller. It's hard to say just with the naked eye, but it's nice to see Waller getting some targets and being involved. And I like the fact that he was our leading receiver on Sunday. So he came up with some big catches and some big plays. So it was good to see that.
Yeah, you know what else, Chris? You start throwing that ball to Hyatt over the top. Waller's going to find himself open.
No doubt.
That's what's going to happen.
That's what happens. Absolutely.
Yeah. The other thing I'll mention about that touchdown, sorry, Scott, I got to get this out before I forget it, is for some reason on the play before that touchdown, Riverboat accepted a penalty that made no sense to accept and gave us another shot at the rather than ceding a 25-yard field goal, he put us in a position to make a 35-yard field goal on the next play.
Mike.
It would have been 4th and goal from the 2, which we probably weren't going to go for it. Instead, it became 3rd and goal from the 12.
Yeah. We always have our text thread going, and I was thinking the same thing, Mike. I think you just beat me to it in terms of like Riverboat, like not accepting or accepting the penalty rather. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, well, shit, you gave us another chance. That usually backfires, and sure enough, it did. Even when that was a huge decision by Riverboat, right? That ran in our. I would just love saying Riverboat over and over.
I think if you're playing Kansas City or Miami, man, you might accept that penalty. Because you're terrified of what they're going to do on 4th and 2. But the Giants? Really? You're afraid of them going for it and getting it on 4th and 2?
Did you see, Riverboat, did you see us last week in Buffalo? We couldn't score from the fucking 1. Not once, but twice. We're double the distance on the 2-yard line. What makes you think we're going to score from the 2?
Riverboat, he's a pretty foul in-game coach, man. He is.
I really wanted to see. I mean, I wanted you guys to win because I said last week I didn't want to play you at 1-6. Actually,
yes,
I wanted to see if they scored, what he would have done. Because don't forget, 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, he didn't go for the 2 on the road against Philly.
Yeah,
would he have gone for the 2 and go by the name Riverboat, or is he gonna like play it conservatively? I don't know what he would have done. I think he probably would have kicked, but I have no idea.
I think he would have gone for it.
I had the gut feeling he was going to go for it if they scored there. And I didn't think that our offense was scoring any more points. So if they scored that touchdown, I was hopeful that he would go for it. The way our defense is playing, I'll take one play from the two. But I had a gut feeling, and from what you just said, Novak, that he took so much hell for not the week before. I almost think he would have been forced into doing it here.
That's a good
or
point.
You never know with Riverboat, though. Sometimes he will thumb his nose at stuff like that and be like, I made the call last week. I made it again this week. It's what, who knows that I didn't I didn't want to find out what he would have done, but I was curious about it. I was already thinking ahead about it.
Go ahead. Sorry.
There might not be a more ill-fitting nickname in all of sports than Riverboat Ron Rivera.
No.
I mean, it really might not be.
No, it's like calling me Skinny Mike. Doesn't make any sense.
The funny thing too is Rivera looked like a guy who had a blank stare that entire game, and the only time he didn't was on an intentional grounding call, which looked clear as day, and he's arguing his ass off that it shouldn't have been intentional grounding. I'm thinking, you're comatose this entire game, and this is what you're agitated about?
Yeah.
Right.
We got one of those famous bailout calls finally in that game, and he wasn't very upset about that at all. He was more upset about the clear intentional grounding.
He coaches a game like catatonic on the sidelines, like Chet's grandparents in the blue kitchen in Weird Science. Like he just stands there staring into the abyss. And you're right, Scott. All of a sudden, he's just barking at a grounding call,
and he wouldn't let it go. And then the announcers that came back from a timeout, the announcers were like, Rivera is still giving it to the official there on the sideline. So we finally balled out on D, got a pass rush. And here's one thing. When I say Giant fans live in a vacuum, think about this. They just witnessed Washington put up 7 points. And part of the reason they put up 7 points is because Sam Howell was running for his life on almost every throw that he was making. That is the same thing that happens to the Giants week after week, and the people are going, why can't Jones just throw it downfield? Why can't we just make plays? You just saw what happened when someone has pressure in their face. We saw the 49ers the last 2 weeks without their left tackle, without some protection. Brock Purdy looks human all of a sudden. He's got his 2 first losses. He's throwing bad balls. Shit's coming down on him. Guys, in the NFL, when you take pressure, you are going to not make great plays. Everyone's going to look like shit. And that's something the fan base needs to understand. It's not on a specific player unless you're really bad, unless you're like what's that guy? Nathan Peterman that just can't throw the ball.
That's
Justin Fields.
Just a great point, Scott. Yeah, I'm looking at Howell's numbers. I mean, the guy, we forced him 20 incompletions. And it doesn't. I don't know the and also the one interception to Banks, which you already mentioned. By the way, that fucking drop by Thibodeau, that interception drop. It really. I mean, it should have been 2 interceptions. That was 4. That's another one of the only times I was going really crazy. I shouldn't say one of the only times. There were several, even in a win. But that drop by Tibbs was crazy. That would have made it 21-7 at that point. Game over with the way the defense was playing and the way. The D line was playing, but it's a great point, Scott. I mean, because fans don't see enough. They just see they just see final statistics, right? And it's like, oh, Jones had a terrible game. He's running for his life. Sam Howell's running for his life on Sunday, and it's so great to see the opposing quarterback, have a game like that, and at the hands of the Giant defense for a change. So it's like you said, you can't get the ball downfield. You just can't. It's impossible.
I even heard commentary this week on the show saying, I feel bad for Terry McLaurin. We don't know what kind of receiver he is because we can't get him a quarterback to throw him the ball. Well, you know what? He's looked good the last couple of years, but how is anyone supposed to throw him the ball? It's like saying when the Giants are playing bad, people aren't saying that about the Giants receivers. They're saying it about Daniel Jones. And I think that's the thing we have to realize. Think about the quarterback. The quarterback that's under pressure, no matter who it is going to look bad.
Yeah. Another good point about quarterback play in the NFL right there. I mean, honestly, just think about this statement for a moment. the Washington Redskins have really never been able to replace Kirk Cousins. I just want you to let that settle in for a second, that statement. And the other thing you said there, Scott, when you referenced San Francisco, that is such a great point, and it goes back to what Novak has been talking about this whole year, that the offensive line, either the offensive line play is straight up bad or the defensive lines are just too good. But whatever it is, there's a huge discrepancy there that's freaking the NFL out, I think. And when you lose Trent Williams, is that his name, the San Francisco tackle?
Yes.
Nasty, that really nasty.
That's a punch to the gut when you lose him.
I was gonna say
the guy that can punch to the gut.
Yeah, the guy that can legally throw punches in the National Football League and not be ejected. Yes, him. That's him.
Just the great San Francisco 49ers who have talent top to bottom struggle without their stud left tackle. The Giants do not have their stud left tackle, who's in the same conversation of high-level tackles as Williams is in the NFL.
Yeah. Yep. A whole different game.
What I'm liking about the Giants' last couple games, and I'm hoping this is a trend, is that Bobby Okereke and Michael McFadden at linebacker are finally showing some life that we haven't seen since maybe Antonio Pierce and the guys back then.
Okereke has been unbelievable, unblockable, and even when they're not blocking him, he's in the secondary making plays. I mean, he's been everywhere.
I just feel like we hadn't heard his name much at all in the first couple of weeks, and now all of a sudden he's involved in every play, it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The former Jet, Hinnock, played well, too, coming up from safety.
Yes, he did.
A Jet reject is playing well. Go figure that. And by the way, I might have to add here, who's the only one that picked the Giants to win?
Yes. Big.
Yeah.
That would be me.
Big move.
You know what we did do in the lead up to the last game, though, Novak, is we cut Lawrence Cager.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Cage.
Yeah. We cut Lawrence Cager to make room. I think it was for an offensive tackle or something like that, but actually it might have been for Justin Pugh. It was to bring Justin Pugh on the active roster.
Did you call him the Cage? Who called him the Cage?
Just Cage.
I didn't know he had a nickname.
I don't know. Just.
By the way, the Knicks have come back from 12 down to take the lead.
All right.
7:20 left in the fourth quarter.
Interesting.
Wow. Championship.
I mean, you guys didn't sign Lyle Collins like the whole, fan base is screaming for. He's still out of a job.
I don't think anyone's signed him yet, have they?
No, the Jets didn't sign him either. But yet he was going to be the savior. He still doesn't have a job in a league devoid of offensive line talent.
Yep.
We're taking former Syracuse great Justin Pugh as our savior.
Justin Pugh, straight from the couch.
He has played well, but the guy looks like he's 180 pounds. I mean, he's tiny.
That's all we need. Just someone get in the way. That's all we're asking.
You're right.
Just get in someone's way.
I just want people to understand when they deny that there's not steroids in football, take a look at these shows that have Chris Snee on them or guys that are former linemen. Who's the Thomas, the guy, the old Brown that's in the booth?
Joe Thomas.
Joe Thomas. These guys are they're my size now. They're my size.
Jeff Saturday is floating around. Sean O'Hara. Yeah, they look like regular guys. Yeah, they look like it's. You don't know what's going on during their playing days, right? All beefed up.
So we got the epic Jets-Giants game coming up this week. Novak, I'm going to lead with you. Your initial thoughts on this game. We're going to let the guests speak first. The resident Jet fan.
Yeah, I haven't had a lot of time to really think about how I might think about this game. Like I said last week, I was hoping you guys would win, and that now I'm regretting saying that because I feel like you got a little momentum going. 2-5, you beat the Jets. You've got I think a couple, if I remember correctly, a couple of winnable games after that. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
I mean, your schedule has opened up a little bit. Is Thomas playing is a big thing for me. Is Andrew Thomas going to be back in the game?
Thomas has been practicing on a limited basis. The hope is that he will play. We don't know for sure. So that is one of the questions that was coming up later on. As of right now, I think indications are he will play.
Unless Daniel Jones happens. And not Tyrod is
Jones
as they're
has
calling
still
him now.
not
It's
been.
not
He's
Tyrod.
still not been. Yeah, Daniel Jones has still not been cleared for contact, which means
Right.
it's Wednesday. He's probably not going to play.
Okay. Well, we just announced today that Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed are back, and they will be in the starting lineup, and they will have their third string corner Brandon Eccles is back too. So I love that.
Well, of course, they just came off a bye, so yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, and so look, it's funny. You want the bye. I actually didn't want the bye after a great win like they had against the Eagles. I like the momentum factor there. I would rather have the bye after a bad loss than a big win because I feel like we've lost a little bit of that momentum. So the Giant game now scares the shit out of me, if I'm being honest. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I saw that. I'm not going to lie. I saw that game on the schedule and I was like, we're going to crush them. I don't think so anymore. Are we doing predictions here? Is that where we're going, Scott? Or what
You give your prediction now. That's fine. We'll all give our little dissertation and give our prediction. That's fine.
Yeah,
let Mike get his pad out.
Yeah, I think the it's funny. I think we will be in on your quarterback all day long. I think the Jets will move the ball a little bit. I am very concerned about Zach Wilson after a week off. The Jets are traditionally a bad team after a bye, like historically bad. So I am going to say that the Giants are actually going to take this one 17-12. 4 field goals from Greg Zuerlein. We're not going to be able to punch it in the end zone. And we're going to drop to 3-4. Now, I will also say that just because we lose this game does not mean that our season is over. A lot of Jet fans will say we have to win this one, or I don't agree with that. I think coming off a bye, I think we're ready for it. So a lot of Jet fans call this game the lay and egg game. This is going to be the Jets lay and egg game. I think I'm going to go out there and shit the bed. I think the Giants are going to win 17-12.
What was the chatter like with your boys in Susquehanna this past weekend on this game?
Yeah, we have a lot of 3 Angry Giant fans and a Jet fan listeners. They love the podcast. I got to tell you, thank you guys, because I got a lot of props. I was like a celebrity down there.
That's awesome.
Right on.
So it was fantastic. But no, everyone loves the podcast. You guys do an incredible job. They were saying, and they were like, they actually asked a couple of them asked, they're like, you're so good. Like, have you practiced this? Are you professionals? So it was really positive feedback. So no, it was great. I had a lot of fun.
No feedback on the game, though.
No feedback on the game.
It was still 2 weeks out.
It's funny. My friends that are Giant fans, are kind of a little downtrodden. They think the Giants suck. They're sick of the offensive line. It's almost like they replaced those guys with you guys when I talk to you now. Same exact narrative. And so they think that the Jets are going to destroy them this week. I disagree. I think the Giants are going to take this one.
Cardone, thoughts about this Giants
game? Yeah, it's funny. I was finally started to think about it today. Because been enjoying the only the second win of the year, right, since Sunday. But even I just want to make a quick point still about the Redskin game here before I get into the Jets real quick. I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but for some reason it was sort of like after the Cardinal game, we've only had 2 wins, right? The Cardinals and now the Redskins, and I was feeling still somewhat unsatisfied for some reason. I don't know why, because maybe as well as the defense played, that's one half of the ball, but it seems like there's never that game where it's just crisp. And just one of those games where just from start to finish, where all phases are just clicking for one full game. I just want to make a couple points where Graham Gano all of a sudden has me a nervous wreck. He missed his only attempt. I know it was a little bit breezy at the stadium on Sunday, but he missed his only attempt. I think he's already had 5 misses, I think, this year. The punt return. I was thinking, I was making a joke on a separate text thread, with my brother and Lowe and those guys up in Jersey there. I'm like, what other asshole team has 3 punt returners in the same game? We went from Gray, who fumbles, and then Sterling Shepard has a muff, right? The first time he's been back there returning punts. What's funny about that too? I think it's the first time that Sterling Shepard's been on camera in the last 3 years, because they were showing him. You know how they love to show the guy that muffed a punt or threw made the mistake to lead to the touchdown. So of course they were showing Sterling Shepard. So, and then of course the Barkley fumble with 7:40 left to try to wrap it up. And I already mentioned the Tibbs drop. So with all that, I'm kind of leading into, it's kind of my own little segue here into my Jet prediction. And those kinds of reasons has nothing to do with next week. I know it's one game to the next, but I still feel like, I don't know, the Giants. I have the Jets winning this game, guys. Novak. So I don't know if Novak's probably like, I wish you would actually pick the Giants because and it's more or less a. I see the Jet defense just getting after Tyrod Taylor. I see one of those games. It's going to be a low-scoring game. I have like a 16-13 Jet win. I just think that I just see us struggling. I see the Giants really struggling to move the ball effectively as well as we did last week against Washington. Even though Barkley looks like he's full speed, and we already mentioned Taylor's playing pretty decent, and Waller's getting some looks, and Hyatt. But I think the Jet front four is going to get after Taylor and after the Giants offensive line. I think they're going to be living in the backfield quite a bit. We're going to have just struggle to score points, and I think Zach Wilson and the Jets will do just enough to get on the scoreboard a couple times, and I think the Jets take it 16-13.
Cardone, halfway through that game, I thought this was going to be a Grey Goose game.
Grey Goose.
And then the Grey fumble.
I put the bottle in the freezer. I was ready to go.
The Grey fumble really started. It's like you got this game firmly in hand. Even if you just move away from that punt, you get a possession. You move on. You don't give them any chance. By the way, we signed a guy this week, Gunnar Olewski or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He's a punt returner. You know what he's known for?
I don't even know.
Fumbling.
Oh, nice. What a pickup.
So he was an all-pro returner. He also led the league in fumbled punts and muffed punts the last
great.
2 years. So it's,
Yeah.
Our friend, Ingrid, she texted, glad you guys signed Gunner. He sucked with Pittsburgh, So
there you go.
Like, take him.
I mean, if you're going to sign someone off the street, shouldn't a fumbling issue be the last thing you get?
I want a guy.
I want a guy that's just going to catch it and not get 3 yards because you're not getting more than 7.
We need Phil McConkey back.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Short-handed McConkey.
Yeah.
Mike, you don't even have to do that anymore. You could go like this.
Oh yeah, I saw that this is a penalty now. Stretching. Well, the ball's in the air.
Well, now we mentioned this, I think, early in the season. I was thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to finally get our double or our 2-score win, right? Which we don't get those. I think we've had 7 in the last 105 games or some shit like that, and we still couldn't manage to win that game by 2 scores. We had to sneak out a 1-score game, which looked like what should have been a Grey Goose game. But yeah, I don't know where I got the most frustrated. The Barkley fumble at the end, that was inexplicable. Like just in a pile. They're literally playing for 3 points there. I was fine with going up 17-7. I'm like, we're going to put this game away. Defense is playing lights out, and we couldn't do it.
What I love about that Barkley fumble, if they had not called it a fumble on the field, I don't think they could have called it a fumble based on replay. But all of the Redskin players were like adamant that it was a fumble. They're all pointing the other way. I think that caused the ref to point the other way without him actually seeing what happened.
I thought it was a fumble.
Yeah, but I don't think they could have called it a fumble had they called him down.
If they called it on.
Well, how many times do you see that situation where it's a pile up down near the goal line and the officials immediately come in and they're tapping the ground like, no, there's not going to be any fumbling today down here.
Yeah, calm down, everyone.
No one's
canceling any.
Mike, your thoughts?
I'd like to do what Cardone did as well and kind of rewind into that last game because it's relevant, I think, to this game is the Giants have real trouble finishing. That game, as we just said, should have been a Grey Goose game. I mean, I counted 5 different plays that went against us, not officials, not anything like that. 5 different plays that went against us. Any one of them would have ended the game early. And of course, we talked about the Tibbs drop. We talked about the Barkley fumble. Either of those things don't happen, and the Giants win that thing going away. And I thought the other one was the drop punt because I'll tell you guys, you go in at halftime. Washington goes in. They said. I mean, I think Rivera even said we're going to change out some coverages or some protections. We're going to get this squared away. Second play of the second half is Tibbs gets a sack. And then we get a holding penalty on the next play. So there they are. We've got them. They went in. They made their adjustments. They come out and get their ass kicked on the first drive. And then we give them the ball at the 31-yard line to punch it in to score. It's infuriating. It really was infuriating. And they just have trouble finishing. And I think that's going to show up again this week. I have the Jets winning this game. I would, under normal circumstances, I'd have this as a Jet blowout, but I think everyone so far who's talked about this game has made some good points. The Jets are pretty high in themselves right now. That I could easily see that being a factor in this game, as well as they should be. I just think there's no good blood between these teams. I mean, they're both going to fight and scrap and claw, and this thing is probably going to be closer at the end than people might expect it to be. But the Giants can't finish. And the other thing I like that might keep the Giants in this game is the Jets are the first team this year that has to prepare for a little different looking Giants team with us throwing the ball over the top. That's not been anything anyone's been afraid of now. Now we've done it about 6 times in 2 games, maybe even more than that. So this is on the Jets' radar. So, as I talked about earlier, I think Waller could have a big day because I don't think the Jets know, like what happened in Washington and almost happened in Buffalo, is if the Giants don't make these 2 or 3 20-yard plays a half, they can't beat you. They're not going to methodically go down the field. So I think the Jets are going to be really, for the first time, we're going to see a team this year a little bit more concerned about a big play than the 3-yard run and the dump off over the middle to the tight end or to Barkley. So I think those things can kind of keep the game close. In the end, the worst matchup on the field from the Giants' perspective is our offense against their defense. I always look for, which combination of those things is the worst for us. And it's when our offense is on the field, we're at the biggest disadvantage. I never like that in a game. So I'm gonna pick the Giants to keep this one close. I'm gonna just say like 19-13 Jets.
What are our records, by the way, up to this point?
I lost track when Cardone was out.
So here's what I thought about this.
Yeah, I think I messed it. I messed you up, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, but you know what, Cardone, you were out the week of the Bills and the Eagles. There is no way in hell you were picking the Jets or the Giants. I think you should just give you that would have been your picks, right? You're not picking the Giants to beat the Bills, and you're not picking the Jets to beat the Eagles.
Yeah,
you weren't.
Hell no.
So I think you just throw them in there for one.
If I go, give
that's
me
good
some.
Is that fair?
I will
Absolutely.
put that back. I will put that back together for next week.
All right.
Yeah.
So
I think you and Novak are tied at the top, and Cardone and I are tied at the bottom.
I'm struggling with. I've been struggling. I think the last several weeks.
Novak gained that one back on you to tie you for the lead. I think this week.
So when I look at this game again, I'll go back to something from the last game too, or actually the last 2 games, and that's the impact Saquon Barkley has on this team. Now he did fumble in this game, but he also scored that touchdown that you're not seeing. I don't think you're seeing Breida make that play. I don't think you're seeing, another giant running back make that play. And I think fans also forget the Barkley impact. I mean, if you look at the numbers of Jones with Barkley versus Jones without Barkley, it's demonstrably better when Barkley's in there.
That's true.
And Barkley gives you a couple of things. He gives you the running game that can avoid the all-out rush that's coming in. And he's not the best pass catcher in the world, but when he does catch a pass, he breaks tackles and goes downfield. And I think that's the thing that we had been missing. Now, it's tough for me to sort of figure out if the Giants are going to win this game because, again, 1 for 15 on 3rd down last game, and they still won the game. They scored on 2 out of their 14 possessions. And it just seems like Daniel Jones does a lot of the small things better. He keeps drives going. If it's 3rd and 3, I'm confident that Jones is either going to roll out and find a guy or he's going to do a run where he's going to get 4 yards. With Tyrod Taylor, he's got to pass the ball, and he's not been able to consistently do that. And he's terrible on short to intermediate throws versus Jones. And that's a concern for me. However, I just heard Novak talk about the Jets against the bye when they come off a bye. The Giants are notoriously terrible coming off a bye too. And I think that in this game, the Giants are going to use some of that momentum. I think they're going to win this game, and I think it's going to be another ugly game. And my score in this game, and I'm probably a little high on the Giants side, but I'm saying it's 20-14 Giants.
So we had, of the 4 of us, we had one of us picked a team to score over 20.
Yeah.
So let's be honest. I think we all agree that this is going to set offensive football back decades.
It's going to be one
because
of those.
That I got to, look, love you guys, but that Giant Commander game was hard to watch.
Hard to watch.
Gross.
I'm surprised you watched it.
I was in the airport and the whole thing, but I was watching some of that. That was a hard game to watch. Didn't the commander punter punt like 8 times in a row or something? Yeah. It was some incredible stat.
He set a record for
8 of first 9 possessions. Yeah.
He set a Washington record for most punt yards and a half.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Oh, wow.
It was some crazy stat. Yet again, another crazy Giant stat. This one for the better.
By the way, I was thinking to myself, we never got together and watched the game like we thought we might. And I thought to myself, I don't know what the scene would be like. Were we at Mulligan's watching this game? Because I think I would have been screaming my head off half the time. The other half the time, I'd be like, what the fuck is going on? I mean, it was a bewildering game to watch.
Yeah. It's kind of like that week 1 last year game where the 3 of us about burned the building down. And then at the end, the Giants inexplicably won. We're like, hey!
Yeah.
Acting like we had it in the bag the whole time. Oh, yeah, it's good. Yeah, no problem.
So we were talking about odd stats. There was a really odd stat because we got to see something you don't see very often in this league. We got to see perfection on Sunday night. The Eagles played a mistake-free football.
Yeah.
And weren't called for any penalties. Mistake-free football.
Yep.
How can that be?
I think they should. They should have stopped the game at the end and just had a ceremony. You take the ball right to Canton. I mean, it's it was just a masterpiece by
like a pitcher's perfect game.
You go and collect the footballs from the game, and maybe you get off all the offensive linemen's jerseys because they didn't hold or punch anyone in the face, anything the whole game. I'm glad I was alive to see it. I will tell. I was going to say tell my children about it one day, but that's not going to happen. So I'll tell someone about it one day. By God.
So you want a good stat here. So it's not actually that uncommon that a team does not have any penalties. It's happened, I think, 6 times since 2020. So roughly once, a little more than once a year.
Yeah.
However, you have to go back to like the 1970s to find the time that a team had 0 penalties and the opposition had more than 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And here's the thing. I would be fully on board with this had the Eagles played a clean game. But we saw them clearly grab a face mask of a wide receiver out on a route in the middle of the field. We clearly saw them hold several times. We saw them false start a number of times on every push or whatever.
At least 10 times.
Yeah.
And then the kicker is, and no one talked about this during the game, but you watch the replay afterwards, the interception that Darius Slay had, the wide receiver behind him is getting wiped out by a guy as he's picking off the ball. So, I mean, all these things come into play, and you say to yourself, after all the officiating things that we've seen this year, the Eagles play a clean game in a game where they committed at least 7 visible penalties, if not more.
Did they have flags on them that might have been picked up or declined? Was that even? Because I don't remember. I watched.
There actually was a play. It was one of the scrum plays where they called the Eagles for being offsides as well as the Dolphins at the same time. But that's not considered a penalty because it was offsetting and they replayed it down.
Right, I was going to say offsetting penalties where it doesn't officially hit the box score. So that's remarkable. Yeah. We talked about it during the game, or we were texting each other about during the game. I'm like, this is remarkable. Team has 10 penalties, the other one has none. Imagine that like in basketball or something. It's absurd.
Yeah.
Well, if we can stay on that for a second, because I was trying to slip this in somehow, and I wasn't sure where because it's not part of my pet peeves or anything. But if we're talking about penalties, so now we talked about last week how a defenseless receiver is a guy getting hit with across the middle. Well, now. Scott, you brought it up, so I don't want to take credit for this, but you were barking on our text thread. McLaurin makes that catch along the near sidelines in front of the Redskin bench, and McKinney comes over and delivers a really nice solid shoulder-to-shoulder hit. They fucking throw. He manages to. He catches the ball, hangs onto it, and they still throw the 15-yarder, saying calling him defenseless. So Scott's like, now you can make a fucking catch and still be defenseless. How is that even possible? He's the ball carrier at that point. You're tackling a guy with the ball, and he's defenseless.
Guys, that was a catch and a tack on.
Right.
There was a 15-yard tack on because he caught the ball. How is a guy who catches the ball defenseless? He caught the fucking ball.
Can't defend him.
And that's what I brought up last week. And he didn't lead with his head. If he led with his head and hit him in the head, fine. Throw the 15 yards. He had his shoulder in there. It's ridiculous.
My favorite. I don't want to change the subject from that if you guys still got something to say, but there was another moment that I wanted to work into. I don't have room for it in my pet peeve tonight. So I don't know if you guys noticed this. I believe it was Barkley, but a Giant got hit semi-late in the game and the crowd kind of booed and the Giant sideline was like looking around like what's going on. When they showed the reverse angle of that, I don't know if you noticed this, but the official who was right there reached like he's going to throw the flag and there was no flag. And then he looked down and just kind of went like this. Like he didn't have the flag where it thought it would be. So he's like, fuck it. It's
I don't know if I remember that play, Mike.
I got to go back and find it. It was a borderline hit. I think the call would have been a little iffy, but I saw he was like, he just switching over to the.
So guys, Sirianni had his jackass moment of the week this week where he was telling people, "Don't outlaw this play. We do it better than everyone else." And then he looks at the camera and goes, "Where's the camera? Don't outlaw this play. We do it better than everyone else." He does this whole mugging for the camera thing. I've broken down why the Eagles do that play better than everyone else because they cheat on every one of them. If you watch that play, the guards move forward before the ball's ever snapped. And then once the ball snapped, two guys behind Hurts basically picked him up. They lift him up off the ground and move him. Now, I thought there was a rule about aiding and abetting the runner. I didn't think it was a pushing thing. I thought it was an aiding and abetting the runner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But even if they take that out, why are the Eagles allowed to fire out before the ball snaps multiple times a game? Put the tush push behind you. They still do it like 5-6 times a game on a regular pass play. I highlighted a few on Twitter this week because I was like, look at this. The guard's moving a beat early. He's in the backfield before Hurts is even getting the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there was a focus on that this week because, the Giants have tried it. A few other teams have tried it and it's worked. We all know what happened for the Giants clown show when they tried it. Like half the team got injured on one play. But so there's been why are the Eagles so good at it? Right. The other teams are trying, it's not having the same success rate. And so between what Scott pointed out, and I also learned this week, which I guess I knew it, but I never really applied it to the tush push play before, is that the center's helmet is allowed to be over the ball. No one else's helmet is supposed to be in the neutral zone. When the Eagles line up for this play, the helmets are straight all the way across. Every offensive lineman is lined up in the neutral zone when they run that play. And, so you say, okay, that's why they're so successful. Now, can we try that? Well, I don't think we get away with it. I saw a team get flagged for that this week where the two guards were too far into the neutral zone. So, yeah, I hate that play. I hate it with every fiber of my being. I can't. I see it. If I see it as fair play, if the Eagles, I really honestly believe we're just better at it than everyone else, then outlawing it's kind of bullshit. You can't target a team. But if they're cheating, stop it. They can stop.
Well, it's a good thing you said that, Mike, about cheating, because you're a Michigan fan, the college team, and I am trying to wrap my head around why is a team that is accused of stealing signals, why is that considered cheating? Should that be considered like good decoding of what's happening on the other sideline? If you can figure out what the other team's doing, shouldn't that be like good strategy rather than being called cheating?
I'll break this down for you real quick. I know this isn't a Michigan podcast or anything, but there is no specific NCAA violation against stealing signals. You guys still there? My computer's acting weird. There's no specific rule about that at all. So they call it sign stealing. It's not. What Michigan is accused of is going to other teams' games, sending scouts basically to other teams' games to watch the sideline and look for, look for signs. But looking for the signs part is not illegal. You're not allowed to go to another team's game and view and record their sidelines, kind of like the Patriots, right? So that's what they're actually technically accused of. Now, listen, I just need people who are not Michigan fans. I got in an argument in a meeting at work today about this. I need people who
great use of work
Michigan,
time. I love it.
Yeah, we really hashed it out. I want people who are not Michigan fans just take 1 second of critical thinking. Is Michigan the only team in Division I NCAA football who's doing this? Really? Really? Right? And then the stuff that Harbaugh got in trouble for earlier in the year, having a workout during COVID. Michigan's the only team that stuck kids in to have a workout during COVID. I'm sure the NCAA has a gigantic hard-on for Jim Harbaugh. You can't convince me of anything different than that. And by the way, the guy got in an argument with work today. I doubt he's listening, but if you are, I left out a great point in our argument. I almost wanted to call him back. You're an Ohio State fan who employed Urban Meyer. What the hell? What the hell are you coming at me for? That's horseshit right there.
Well, and I'll tell you what, Ohio State, and I'm not either a Ohio State or a Michigan fan. I really don't like either of them. But Ohio State, every time they lose, they accuse the team of sign stealing. They accused Clemson of sign stealing once.
Yeah, that's they can't imagine that anyone could decode their super complex run the ball between the tackles offense.
I will say this, I think a guy who can count cards in blackjack is skillful. That's not considered cheating, if you ask me. If you can figure out how many cards are left in the deck, you should be able to be rewarded for that.
Yeah.
So that's where I stand on that part.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
We got accused at high school. My high school football team got accused of sign stealing once. Then when the coaches met at midfield, there was almost a fight. They're like, "You're stealing our signals," blah blah blah. So the coach wanted to address it with us in the locker room after the game. So he's talking about it. He goes, "We were stealing signals." He goes, "But let me tell you why." And he's like, their signal for a bootleg was the coach would touch his boot and then pat his leg. He's like, we couldn't help but steal the signal. I mean, and if our good buddy Scott is listening, Scott the Steeler fan, if he's listening, he'll remember that. That was Dryden for you guys upstate New Yorkers. That was Dryden who accused us of sign stealing.
I always remember Dryden and Groton.
Yeah, we decoded their very tricky bootleg symbol.
Sneaky sleuthing going on right there.
Yeah,
they touch the boot in the leg. Like, wait a minute.
They got concerned because out in the field we had no idea what was going on. But the coach is over. Our coach is over on the sideline screaming, "Bootleg, bootleg!" So we're all like, "All right, it's going to be a bootleg." Sure enough, every time.
There were some. Again, this week was another bad officiating week in the NFL, in college, all around. In college, there was a game I sort of joked about earlier with the fair catch signal, but Minnesota. Iowa scores a go-ahead winning touchdown on a punt return, and they retroactively call it back for an illegal fair catch signal where the guy was telling his teammates to get away from the ball. It bounces, he catches it and runs it back. No flags were on the play when it happened. They waited till after he scored, and then they went back and reviewed it and said, "Oh, that was an illegal signal." This guy had been doing it all game long, by the way.
Unreal.
No penalties. And then
That's
and then you had in the NFL, you had that debacle between the Colts and the Browns. The Browns again getting embroiled in this controversy. So the Colts at the last drive, the Browns were given basically a touchdown, but not only that, they had 3 third down bailouts, and then the last one they called pass interference in the end zone on a ball that almost landed in the stands. So they put the ball at the 1, and it still took the Browns 4 plays to get it in. They had to get it in on 4th down.
Yeah.
Jim Irsay, by the way, went off and said today. He said all penalties. He said anything, penalties, questionable, anything should be reviewed in the last 2 minutes. I sort of agree with him. He's probably going to get fined for saying that. But you know what? The shit show that we keep seeing with the Eagles having no penalties called against them, that end of the Colts game. I don't know if you guys saw the Steelers-Rams game where they awarded a first down to the Steelers when they were clearly short, but the Rams had used all their timeouts because they were trying to stop the clock, and it was the play just before the 2-minute warning, so they could not go and review it. They got screwed. It's an epidemic right now.
Shouldn't a fourth down play, by the way, be automatically reviewed?
It should be, but the thing was, because they got the first down, they considered it not a change of possession. But that's a great point, Mike. Any fourth down play should be reviewed because if
any scoring play,
if the other side of the ball was that they stopped them, they would have reviewed it.
Yeah.
I've got an officiating prediction for this weekend that involves our game.
All right.
Ready for this one?
Yep.
The Jets have not had a roughing the passer call in their favor in over 2 years.
Oh, they'll get one this week.
It's going down Sunday.
It's going down. There's no way.
Because I'm gonna be with you guys. It's gonna be at a critical point in the game, and there's gonna be a bullshit, you'll say, roughing the passer call on Zach Wilson. Guaranteed. I'm calling it now.
And it's gonna be Leonard Williams who draws it.
Great call, Novak. Yeah.
2 years. October of 21 was the last call, and Matt Milano almost killed Mike White. But of course, that was no, roughing the passer call. Yeah. It's going to happen Sunday. I'm calling it.
I wrote it down. I'm going to give you a bonus point.
I was going to say, let's
if it happens.
Make that one.
Did we see Christian Wilkins demolish Jalen Hurts by gently pushing him to the ground and getting a 15-yard penalty?
I'm glad they only showed that the one time because that was brutal to watch.
That was a third down bailout.
Yeah, the third down bailouts. I have to go no comment on this unless we're going into pet peeves because I'm all over this.
We're getting ready to go into pet peeves. I will just point out one other thing. I don't know if you guys saw this in the Chiefs game, or I should say the Chiefs-Chargers game. Somehow, the fan that was in the luxury boxes, the Chargers fake fan,
Charger woman,
she found her way down to the front row in the Chiefs game and got camera time. How did that happen if she's not a plant from the NFL?
No, they always randomly take fans down there, Scott. You didn't know that? That's a fairly common occurrence. Just pick a random fan and they just say, hey, would you like to come down to the sidelines and distract everyone and just be a bimbo?
I mean, that game alone could have been a pet peeve, just having Taylor Swift up there with Jackson Mahomes and Mahomes' wife, and then have the fake Chargers fan down in there too. They were all getting airtime during that game, by the way.
Cardone, didn't you say there was a Taylor Swift statistic?
There was. I can't remember what the heck was it.
Was something along the lines of what the Chiefs.
Oh, it was the splits.
Kelsey,
that's right.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Kelsey with and without Taylor Swift during an NFL game.
During a game.
It wasn't on E! Entertainment afterwards. It wasn't on Inside Edition.
They're giving Swifty splits now. That's what we're. That's
Edition.
All right, some moron is keeping track of that. Think about that. A guy like some jack off is keeping track of those statistics and all those things. And they're like, hey, let's lose that graphic. Let's use it.
They had Kelsey's catches, yards, and average yards per catch. Yeah. All have gone up in the Taylor Swift era. No pun intended.
All right, let's move to pet peeves. I'm going to start with Cardone on this one. Mike didn't want to go first last time, so I'll go with Cardone.
Of course you go somewhere else. I'm prepared this week.
No, fuck you.
Very good. No, that's all right. I'll go. I have mine's real short actually. I didn't have a real intense one this week. I'll be honest, guys. So it's a small two-parter. So the first part of it was kind of a segue into the actual pet peeve, I guess. But I mentioned this. We've mentioned this many times on the pod before as a pet peeve, where when we have the odd baseball score in a football game, a la the 5-3 with the safety. We all know, we've heard this one a million times. So the other night, I enjoy watching the Major League Baseball playoffs, and I was watching the Texas Ranger Houston Astro game. I think it was Game 6. What doesn't matter. And at one point, Texas was they were putting it to the Astros. They were up 10-3 at one point late in the game. So sure enough, I was thinking, don't do it. This guy might do it. So sure, at the end of after the inning break, we got a football score here in Houston. I'm like, God damn it, there it is. And I'm like, no, we don't actually. I was barking in my living room here thinking like, no, not really, dude. When you think about it, because with all the teams going for 2 and with all the teams not taking chip shot field goals, 10-3 is fucking hard to come by now these days. 10-3 is not the automatic. 11-3 is more likely, or 8-3 or 8-0. But why must we trot that out there in a 10-3 baseball game? Who's thinking that? How come we don't say that when it's 3-0? Oh, we got a field goal game here in Texas on a 3. Right? It's 3-0 all the time in a baseball game. You don't fucking hear it then.
No, you don't. They don't say, the Texans and the Cowboys have exchanged field goals here.
Have exchanged field, right? 3-3. You're exchanged field goals. So that was just a little intro to my pet peeve. But the real pet peeve is now when every time in any game, every announcer, when you get down to that red zone area or you come to the decision making where whether or not a team's going to kick a field goal, it's 4th down, they're in field goal range. And now, remember, guys, it wasn't that long ago when a team went for it. It was like, whoa, and the Jets are going for it on 4th down. They're keeping the offense on the field. Well, now it's the complete opposite where us as the viewers watching the game, the announcers so intelligently have to tell us, well, wait, like, they're going for a field goal here. What's going on? Like, why are they not going for it? They start giving me analytics. They start going into the whole thing now where I can't take it, guys. They're actually disappointed when field goal units come on now. It's gotten out of control. Just like everything's out of control these days. That was just a quick pet peeve I had where it's not just now the coaches. We've highlighted the coaches making these decisions. Now it's the announcers that are completely on board with it. And I'll be honest, as much as I love Peyton and Eli and the Manning cast, they do it. Peyton does it more than Eli. Peyton's much more vocal than Eli. But Peyton will be pissed off and downright disappointed when a team's not kicking a field goal. I'm like, come on, Peyton, you're smarter than that. It's annoying as hell, guys. It's just the announcers have gotten swept up by all this crap too. It's just crazy.
Cardone, the Eagles went for it from their own 27-yard line.
Yes. Yeah.
And after they made it, the proclamation was, well, the analytics are in their favor.
Yep.
How the fuck is that possible? Because if you don't make it, that's a sure score for the other team. You better be able to make
Miami.
it. I guess it's 100% of the time with the Eagles because they get to cheat on that play. But otherwise, that's bullshit. And Sirianni this week basically said, guys, for us, it's 1st and 9.
Yeah. Just, it's bullshit.
I hate Sirianni, but he's not wrong.
He's not?
He's not wrong. They can get 1 yard whenever they want it. So
yeah,
that's done. So
whether they
Cardone,
get it or not.
Yeah, exactly. They put the analytics stats up on the screen like regular stats now.
Yeah.
When a team gets in that position, they're like, well, the analytics say you go for it here in 4th and less than 4. And my problem with that is always been the same thing. Analytics are analytics. You're not factoring in game situation, who you're playing, how good their defense is, how good your offense is. All that says is you should go for it based on stats of 100 different teams with 100 different talent levels playing 100 different talent levels of defense. What if it doesn't even factor in if the other team has got like a 400-pound, middle defensive tackle that no one can move. It just
can't the analytics just be a suggestion? Does it have to be absolutely what you must do? It's sort of like when Michael Scott and Dwight Schrute were following the Google Maps or MapQuest and it told them to make a right turn and they fucking drove right into the lake. Like, just, it's a suggestion from some computer. It doesn't mean you have to do it. Well, the analytics said, when do you ever do you do that in your personal life? Every time something comes across, like, well, I'm going to have to do this because some credit card company just reached out and said, well, the analytics say I must, consolidate my debt because that's what I'm supposed to do.
I'll tell you what, Mike touched upon this. Here's what I have a problem with analytics is analytics take into account a big picture number, but you're playing a 17-game season that has a lot of small variables in it. It's like poker. So in poker, it might tell you to go all in on a certain hand, or you have a probability of winning a certain hand that's overwhelming. But you know what? If you're at a tournament and you lose that hand, you're out. And that's what happens with the NFL sometimes. If you lose that bet, or you go for it on fourth down and you don't make it, you lose the game.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if the percentages say it evens out over time. You don't have a whole lot of time in a 17-game season. You have 17 games. And if you make the wrong decision, or you make a decision that backfires 4 out of those 17 games, chances are you're not making the playoffs because of coaching error.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Scott, the poker analogy is an awesome one, because if I have done this, if you read poker books that talk about using analytics in poker, it is very clear that they say, listen, it doesn't mean you'll win the hand 51% of the time that you do this. What it means is, over your lifetime, if you call every time in this situation, you will make money. You will be in the plus. You'll be in the positive if you do that. And it's the same way for baseball. Analytics belong in baseball. If you throw a certain guy a certain pitch throughout the course of the season, he is not going to have a good average against you. You know, it belongs there in a 162 game season. That's enough data where analytics makes sense. To Scott's point, 17 games is you're just getting the airplane off the ground. And if you fuck one of those up, you're done. You're done for that year. It's, you know, and the thing that pisses me off most about it is kind of what Cardone was going at there, I think, was, you know, coaches would never think to do this before because it would cost them their job if they screwed it up. And now, not only does it not cost them their job, it might cost them their job if they don't do it.
Yeah.
How does the Chargers coach still have a job after all the
seriously, I mean, come on with that guy. Every week that guy's fucking something up. Every week.
He really is.
Take it.
But he's got an ardent fan that follows him.
Yeah.
The only one.
Charger girl.
Yeah. All one of them.
Who also doubles as Dolphin girl on the other days. She's not Charger girl.
Novak, pet peeve?
Yeah, so just to recap from last week's pet peeve, how many times have you guys seen that BK commercial now that I brought that up last week?
Oh God.
It lives right free in my head.
That's what
That was great. We had a sequence last week where we had the BK commercial, a Kelsey
Travis
commercial.
Kelce, a Taylor Swift sighting, like boom, 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 right in a row.
Awful.
My pet peeve is, and I don't know if it's a pet peeve as much as it's more of a question, because I don't have an answer for this. What constitutes when a player goes into concussion protocol? Like, when do you say, let's put him in that blue tent? Because I saw a hit on Christian McCaffrey that it was head to head. A, he didn't get a flag. B, he was woozy standing up. He didn't go into the blue tent. But yet I see in another play, someone goes down, barely hits the ground, and they're in the blue tent in the next play. And I also heard Tiki Barber on Monday, I listened to WFAN, said he thought that Brock Purdy had a concussion when he threw those interceptions at the end of that game. He knew it. So today it just came out that Brock Purdy has a concussion. He's in the protocol. So I don't understand how the NFL during the game decides you're going to the blue tent, you're fine, you're not, you are. Is there rules on this, or is it just a gut check? Is it what? My pet peeve is I'm frustrated with the concussion protocol. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no standard thing. It's always it just seems like seems like a good time to do it. It's not an important player. Throw him in the blue tent.
That's
I have no idea.
All I know is that any Eagle that's ever had a concussion that I've known of plays the very next week. I've never known an Eagle to miss a game due to a concussion.
He plays late, comes back to the game. That goes back to Andy Reid. Scott, you're all over that, because if
who's the last Eagle you can remember missing a game due to a concussion?
I haven't. There's not one.
It's supposed to be an impartial observer, but miraculously, these impartial observers seem to let the star players stay in the game, no matter how much they're vomiting and looking through the side of their helmet on the sidelines. It's more. I mean, that's close to my pet peeve, so I'll stop. But
it's no different than the COVID year, which I've brought up before. The Broncos were playing like a 7th string wide receiver at quarterback one game, and they get to the playoffs. No one got COVID for like a month and a half during the playoffs.
Yeah.
Miraculously,
Miraculous.
the NFL
Yeah.
was cured of COVID for a month and a half. So you can't tell me something is not going on there. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Guys, the more I see like the refereeing stuff, these kind of examples, the NFL is no better than the WWE. It's basically, I remember when Arian Foster a few years ago said that the NFL is scripted. He basically said, I didn't basically say it. He said the NFL is scripted. No one said, no, it's not. They just they just laughed at him. That's not a denial. That's just laughing at the guy. The more I see of the NFL, I can't say it's scripted, but it's a lot like the WWE.
Well, the ending of that Colt Brown game certainly makes you scratch your head. If anybody was watching that, I think that was, I don't know what the script is there other than Colts were not supposed to win that game for whatever reason.
It is WWE. It's
next thing you know,
the Colts are the Browns are up off the mat. How did that happen? The Colts are celebrating, walking around the ring.
That's what I was gonna say. Next thing you know, they're gonna show the blue tent and show a guy's hand outside the blue tent. All of a sudden, his fist is gonna pump and he's gonna come busting out of the tent. But you know what's funny about that Colts game is that we were joking about it when it happened, but then on NBC that night, not only did they not mention the calls, but they said that the Browns had an epic drive to win the game. An epic, crucial drive.
Yeah, it was the drive, 1986 Broncos drive. It's the same thing.
The drive.
Yeah. Gross.
I don't get it.
Mike, pet peeve?
Yeah, I got one, and I know you guys are probably, when you set up your pet peeves this week, you're like, oh my God, everyone's gonna wail on officiating, so I'm gonna go away from it. I went into it. I steered into the storm with this one. But so the Cleveland Indy game we've talked about a lot, and that was just this week's example, right? And there were several other around the week, but that was the one this week that was so blatant. But I'll tell you this: the Indy coach was going bananas at the first of the calls, I think. And the referees went over to him and talked to him. And then that arrogant ass ref comes back on, turns his mic on, looks into the camera and goes, "The call stands. Illegal contact," was the words he says. Now, you can't challenge illegal contact to my knowledge. So there was nothing challenged. So what does it mean the call stands? He just did it to be an asshole. Just like, just
by the way, that illegal contact, again, a third down bailout.
Yeah, of course it was.
Of course it was third down.
So that I just wanted to slip that in there. It does feed in my pet peeve. So starting this week, guys, I'm starting a campaign for an investigation, and it's not into corruption. I don't think anything is rigged. I don't think anything is scripted. My investigation is I want full transparency into how officials are instructed to call games. I think teams deserve to know that, every team. And maybe they do, but I think fans, media, we all need to know what these refs are told. That it's, what is allowed and what isn't. When do special conditions apply? Clearly, officials use special conditions as part of how they call a game. You don't see defensive holding or illegal contact on 3rd and long. That's not one officiating, it's not one official, it's not one officiating crew doing that. That is across the league that crap happens. There's and it seems to be in the 4th quarter, there's some rule changes apparently that happen. So the other thing I want to know is, what are the points of emphasis? I want to know every one of them, because you always hear, like this year, right? They're talking about illegal downfield. That's a point of emphasis this year, right? I want to know all of them. What are the other points of emphasis? What are the ones that were points of emphasis in the past that have now been pulled back? Right. And if they have points of emphasis, you also have, it just makes common sense. You have to assume there's other penalties where they've told the officials, don't call that as much. Like, that has to be blatant before we're going to call that one. But we want you catching every single illegal man downfield, right? So that has to be happening. At some point, there's penalties that get de-emphasized. I think we need to know that. That shouldn't be something just shared between the governing body and its officials. every team needs to understand what these things are. And I don't think anyone's going to, the NFL is going to start being taken not seriously if they don't do some things like this. For me and thousands of other people, Scott will know this, and Cardone I think fits right into. I don't know what Novak's history here is. When Scott and I first met, I was as big a New York Knicks fan as a Giants fan. I mean, it was close. I loved the Knicks. I watched every game that was available to me. I poured over stats. I loved it, just like I do for football now. The Jordan rules killed the NBA. It killed it for me, I know, and I know it killed it for a lot of other people.
Killed it for me.
Yep.
Same.
And we know that in the NBA, even going back into the 70s, people were allowed to travel a little bit. And maybe you were allowed to travel a little bit more if your name was a little bit more well known. But it became blatant in the Jordan era.
Yep.
These special rules for special players, it became blatant. And what's happening in the NFL right now is we are shifting to where these things are becoming blatant, where the star quarterbacks are getting more illegal hit on the quarterback calls, late hit calls. They happen more. I mean, that's data that's out there. These guys who have big names get that call more. That's Jordan rules. And in the NFL, it applies to entire teams and not just players, which I think is the way that the NBA went as well with that after a while. And it became, to Scott's point, this is why I was so quiet when he was talking about the WWE. It became a joke. It became literally almost rigged. I don't think the NFL is there yet, but they're on the same path as the NBA. You can't deny that. And just like the NFL does now. You remember Tim Donaghy? You guys remember the official?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Who was
yeah.
actually
Definitely.
fixing games.
Yep.
Yes.
That got swept under the rug fast.
Yeah, it did.
The NBA didn't. They tried to hide data on his games. They tried to bury stuff because they knew you could go back and you could find specific games that were rigged if you looked hard enough. They wanted nothing to do with that. They buried that. They did. They had the same setup the NFL's getting to now, which is this gaslighting setup that don't look over there at what you actually see. Listen to what we're telling you.
Mm-hmm.
And the NBA is might even be more advanced at it right now than the NFL is, because the NBA would have you believe that like the WNBA is a viable league. They lie right to your face about it. They would have you believe, if you listen to NBA announcers and the media who are the mouthpieces for the NBA, they will tell you right now that NBA has never been a more successful league than it is right now. It's at the peak of its existence. Everyone knows that's not true.
No.
I know I can name 15 people who back in the 80s and 90s loved this flippin' league and now can't stand it. And it's because of exactly, I'll tell you, it's the same path that the NFL is on right now. I was physically ill Sunday night from watching football games this weekend. And as Scott touched on, this isn't an NFL problem. It happens in college football.
Oh, yeah.
Football made me sick this weekend. Just thinking in my mind, how many outcomes were changed by officials? There is the Cleveland Indy game. The winner of that game flip-flopped because of things officials said, or the calls officials made. Scott's mentioned it before, that people always say officials don't determine games, players do. There's the latest example. The players did decide that game. The officials reversed the decision. I mean, that's that's
right.
That's just there. That's just what's happening. And I think people just don't even want to think of the concept. And I'm talking about media, especially. Well, media can't say anything because the NFL is so powerful. They will ruin you if you say something like that. Fans don't want to really admit it, and they say things like that. Well, players decide the games, officials don't. The only reason I can think of a fan would be that forward about that is because they just can't allow their mind to wrap around something like that being not decided by players. You know what I mean? They just can't let their mind go that far, because then all of a sudden they're basically wrestling fans. But we're headed there. We are headed there, and we've talked about it a lot in text when the game was on, and I was I was pretty close to turn it in my fan card on Sunday, and every week it's just getting worse. Every single week it's just getting worse and worse.
Mike, I'll give you a good example. So, the Giants, we saw the week before when the Giants played the Bills and Darren Waller had that last play in the end zone, and obvious pass interference wasn't called. If you watch the Bills-Patriots game this week, the Patriots ran the same exact play. There was no pass interference, and the tight end caught the ball for a touchdown. Everyone celebrates the fact that the Patriots won that game, and everyone's just moved past the fact that the Giants lost that game to the Bills is accepted fact. And it's the calls and the non-calls that are deciding a lot of these games, and no one wants to just man up and admit it or say it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's great call, Mike.
It's getting bad. It's going
really
from
bad.
It's going from comical to disturbing in my mind. Why would I pour my heart and soul into a football team if they can't even dictate what's going to happen on the field?
Yeah.
Yep.
If they have less and less control over the outcome of the game.
Yeah, you want your team to control their destiny. And if your team fucks up, and we've been on both sides of this with the Giants. We've seen the Giants fucked up. We've seen them rise above. But when the Giants have fucked up, we have said as fans, the Giants have fucked up. We aren't making excuses for them. We aren't saying that they should have won a game that they shouldn't have won. The only time we say that is if there's official interference or anything that really tilts the scale. Otherwise, we're more than happy to say the Giants fucked up, and I'm sure Novak's the same way with the Jets.
Same thing.
Same thing. Our teams have done a lot of boneheaded things in the last decade to screw themselves.
Yep. It's we had talked about it a couple weeks ago. I think I mentioned that I'm glad the Giants suck this year. Their games don't matter, because I think our weight of talking about this officiating problem carries more weight. I'm not talking about any of the calls in the Giants game. I'm not talking about one. The worst call in that game was against the Redskins. So, I get it. I don't know what it is, but this isn't a Giants problem. This is an NFL problem. I promise everyone, this is not sour grapes. I'll leave it with this. I mentioned this in the text thread too, is so the third and long bailout thing, like that, everyone knows about that, right? Like we chuckle about it, but you hear other people talk about it. It's very noticeable that these penalties come 3rd and 12. We've talked about it for years, right? When is anyone in the media ever even brought that up? Have you ever heard anyone on any level within the media say, "Hey guys, did you ever notice that there sure are a lot of 3rd and 15 iffy calls in this league that extend offensive drives"?
Not once.
I know why they can't say it. They're going to get fined if they bring that up, or they're going to get cut off by the NFL. Something's going to happen if they talk about it. But that's why I started this with, we need to start a campaign, because this has got to come from the media asking those questions.
Yep.
If it's going to change, the media has to grow a pair of balls. To Cardone's point, they have to get that little meeting that they have and say, "Is it okay to talk about this week? Is this something we're going to talk about this week?"
Is this okay? Yeah. Is this?
It won't happen.
Do we have permission?
They've all got to get together and say, "Are we going to question the 3rd and long bailouts this week? Like, is that something we can all agree to do?" I think it has to happen to I'll bet you if it happened to the Chiefs a couple weeks in a row, you'd hear some chatter about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the only time we're ever going to hear anything is if it happens like it did in that Viking New Orleans playoff game, or if it happens in the Super Bowl. And it has to be blatant enough to basically impact the outcome of the game. And then people will rise up, and then it'll be forgotten the next year when they don't do dick about it.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we already have evidence of that.
Yeah.
Everyone went bananas. Media and everyone went nuts about the non-pass interference call. So for 1 year, the NFL said, "Okay, everyone back off. We're going to fix this. We're going to make pass interference reviewable." 1 year, everyone shut up about it. They rescinded it. They pulled it back. We're right back to where we were today when that play in the same climate that play happened in.
Oh yeah. And I think part of that too, and I don't know if Mike, you brought this up or if I saw this somewhere else. It still stems from the fact that you have old fucking people trying to keep up with young guys on the field, and they can't do it. And so you what drives me more nuts than anything else, and we saw this in the Giants game the past week with Saquon Barkley a couple times, the spotting of the balls. For some reason, they come in. Sometimes it's a yard or 2 yards behind where the play is, and that impacts it. If it's 3rd and 1, and you're like 3rd and inches really, and the guy's marking it 3rd and 2.5, that's a big fucking difference.
Yeah.
Well,
they're spotting it 2 yards short because they were 7 yards behind the play.
Exactly.
That's the best they could see of it. How about college players that don't make the NFL as officials? They know the rules. They're in shape.
I'm all for it. I'm all for getting younger blood in there, because you can't tell me. I don't care. The most fit 70-year-old guy is not able to keep up with these players.
No.
He could have sharp eyesight, and his fucking tendons are still 30 years older than what they should be.
Yep.
So my pet peeve is kind of going in that same realm. And one of the things I rail about with the officiating is just the complexity of everything. Just make everything simple. Make it simple. Call things at the point of attack. I saw videos this week of like a Miami guy running in and getting like basically choked as he's running through the line of scrimmage at the point of attack. And that still wasn't called a hold. If it's at the point of attack, if it materially impacts a play, call it. So what I did this week is I went and I looked at the definition of holding, offensive holding. And when I do that, it's interesting, some of the wording there. So it says it's holding if a blocker materially restricts the opponent, which is a very broad statement.
Materially
restricts. Now, it is a foul whether or not the hands are inside or outside the frame of the body, which I've heard from people. If it's inside the frame, it's okay. No, it's a foul if the hands are within the frame or outside the frame. If you grab or tackle the opponent, it's a foul. If you hook, jerk, twist, or turn them, it's a foul. If you pull them to the ground, it's a foul. Now, oddly enough, if the defensive player does a rip move, all holdings let go. If a defensive player does a rip technique, they are instructed to let that go. But here's the thing that lets a lot of this off the hook. The final part of the rule states, if the official has not seen the entire action of holding, it shall not and will not be called.
I turned away. I didn't see the end. No call.
Yeah. So that's the official's bailout.
That's the official's bailout. Yes. But here's my biggest problem here is you have so many judgments that are happening. Why even have this wording in the rule book? Just say if someone at the point of attack is materially impacted from making a play, throw a flag. If it happens on the defensive end that's on the opposite side of the field, let it go. Mm-hmm. And we make things so freaking complicated rather than just make it easy. And I've been beating this drum for a while. And the more I say this in my head, the more I realize I don't think the NFL gives a shit. They don't want it to be easy. They want there to be this subjectiveness that fans like us are bantering about. That the talking heads are bantering about. Because it allows them, I don't want to say to manipulate, but to have contests that end up like the Eagles-Dolphins game did or the Browns-Colts game does, where it's not so much now on the officials, it's on us. We're just making shit up.
Yeah. I've said from the beginning, and it could, because immediately when you start talking about officials, people say, "Oh, right. The games are rigged," and they shut you down. I want to be very clear to everyone. I don't think games are rigged. I think games are, Scott, you pulled back from saying it. I'll say it. I think games are manipulated to pump up the offense and to try to make the finish exciting, if at all possible. Mm-hmm. That's what I think. And I think your point's a great one, and it kind of does dovetail right into mine, which is it's not good enough to just read the rule book. The NFL rule book is worthless because we have all these side rules that change from year to year. These things are emphasized. These things aren't. Like Scott mentioned, the rule book specifically says inside or outside doesn't matter. That's holding. The NFL is not officiated that way. That is not, we've all heard it, announcers for 2 decades at least telling us it's okay to hold if you're inside the frame. So yeah, that's why the same thing I'm calling for. I want full transparency. I want to either, like to Scott said, rewrite the rule book so that it's current to today and that it's not as complex and leaves much less interpretation up to the officials.
I want to know how you block a guy without hooking, jerking, twisting, or turning them.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah, it sounds that rule book was written when defensive linemen weren't very good. I think that's the problem.
Exactly.
Maybe we need to get the officials training camp on Hard Knocks so we can get the inside scoop on this shit.
Love it.
No teams want to do it anymore. We just do the officials. It's a good idea.
Exactly.
So we got a bunch of questions this week. My buddy Mike asked if we listen to any other podcasts. He also included Novak in this to say if you listen to any Jet podcast. I'll start by saying I have listened to a lot of podcasts. I listened to Bobby Skinner's podcast, which is I can't think of the name of it now all of a sudden.
Talking Giants?
Talking Giants.
Okay.
So I listen to Talking Giants, and I find them to be probably the most entertaining outside of us because they do make things jovial. I have tried listening to Inside Giants or Giants Insider, and the one guy on that, Chris Bisignano, he's constantly going, Jerry, hey Jerry, here Jerry, and it gets so annoying, and these guys just drone on and on. And he talks about being an insider in the locker room, and you know what? I think we found our niche sort of as that group of guys that if you were to walk into any neighborhood bar and hear a bunch of guys talking about football, you'd find the four of us. And I almost think that's why we draw not just Giant fans, but we draw Jet fans, we draw Cowboy fans, we draw fans of other teams to this podcast because we are talking about the Giants and the Jets, but we're talking about the NFL as a whole and society, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's, we came on the air before the Manning cast did, but our mission was kind of the same. We just want to be 4 dudes sitting in a den drinking beers talking about football. That, and that's what Peyton and Eli want to do. They just want to be 2 brothers at home watching the football game and commenting on it. It's like the MST3K version of football, right? You guys know that Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah.
It's
God, yes.
Yeah, it's like
love that show.
And so they stole that idea from us. Clearly, we are pending litigation on that. By the way, before this podcast, I had heard people talk about podcasts. I weren't sure exactly what they were. I didn't even know what I signed up for. So, this is still the only one I listen to. I don't know what other people are doing.
The only one Giants. You mentioned Giants Insider. I think is that right? Is that the one?
Yeah. Jerry Foley and Chris Bisignano.
I found myself just bored after like 20 minutes. I don't know why. I just couldn't listen to these guys. I just found it kind of boring. Obviously I think we do a hell of a job here. We try to entertain as long. I feel like we know our football, but also, we do analogies, we do Seinfeldisms, all that kind of stuff. We're a hybrid of lots of things. We're like, I don't know, we're a sports show, but we're like, I don't know, entertainment and comedy and all that, all rolled up into one. So I think I like what we got going on.
We had a question one of our first years starting, and someone actually said, why don't you guys dive into analytics? And they named another Giant podcast, which I tried to listen to a couple of times, and they're doing the all 22 view and breaking it down for these different plays. And I thought to myself, especially in a year like this, how the fuck are we supposed to keep listeners captivated talking about the all 22 view of a shit show that's out there for most of these games. I mean, I listen to some of those podcasts and I can't make it. I'm bored out of my skull. Whereas at least talking Giants and you know keeps me entertained more than anything else. But
Yeah,
that's
like I said,
that's about the only one I found.
I'll listen to Joe Benigno and this guy John Butchko who does Locked On Jets. But what's funny, like all my buddies, they like the pet peeves. I mean, they listen for the funny stuff. If I'm being honest, they don't give a crap about our breakdown of the games.
Yeah, I've had several people say, "Can you just like release the pet peeve segment separately each week so I don't have to listen to the football stuff?" These are mostly
I
girls.
could do that actually. So, got another question from Mike asking, "How did Tiki do in the booth?" I'll tell you this. I thought Tiki was pretty good doing the game. By the way, Tiki Barber was one of the commentators for the Giants game this past week.
I like Tiki Barber personally. I think he's great.
I think he did all right till he started ripping up Barkley for fumbling. I was like, "Well, who the fuck are you talking about?"
Right.
That was no, he did. He owned his own fumbling problems, and he talked about holding the ball vertical and all that. He did a good job.
I had no problem with Tiki. Yeah, I thought he did an okay job. I mean, most of the time I'm annoyed by almost all these guys, but he was fine. Yeah, didn't say anything to set me off. So I thought he was good.
So Peacock has a competitor. There's another Brian V has asked us a question. Well, he's asked a couple questions. I think we talked about, but he was talking about the Andrew Thomas return. Is he going to be at full strength? And what other injuries do we have? Well, as far as I know, I think Thomas is slated to come back this week. We know Lemieux is out probably for the year. But if Thomas comes back, I see the lineup probably being Thomas, Pugh, Bredesen, Glowinski, and then I'm not sure if it's going to be a Zudu or maybe Pugh switches over to the right. I'm not positive, but at least as far as the O line goes, I think Zudu will be able to play, but Lemieux's out.
Yeah, I think we lead the league, or we're among the top in trotting out a different offensive lineup in the first through the first 7 weeks of the season. I think there was only one other team that had more. I'm forgetting the stat. I think they showed it last week or the week before. But yeah, I don't know. That Thomas is the biggest one, right? I mean, we need our starting left tackle to get back. So that's the one I've got my eye on the most. Obviously Daniel Jones, but aside from Jones, really it's Thomas. It's our left tackle. It's the line. Get some of these guys back. Yeah, I think Scott Lemieux is probably out for the year on that one, but I'm looking at the injuries from this week, and a lot of guys popped up on the questionable list. Kayvon Thibodeau's on there, Darren Waller, Saquon, we know, kind of hyperextended his elbow. Even Graham Gano was questionable. Doesn't even know what the hell for, but I don't know. And Brightwell is questionable.
And then our good friend Brian Peacock asks, does losing to Zach Wilson end the season?
JETS, is that what we're going with?
I mean, at 2-6, 2-6. I don't know, guys.
2-6 is tough.
We'd have to. It's tough to come back.
Brian, the season is already over.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
Yeah,
I will say this: we are only 1.5 games out of a wild card as of right now.
Oh God, here goes Scott Cardone again.
I know. Here comes. This is when we start entering the delusional part of Scott
God.
here.
However, we were not listed in the hunt today.
Oh
God.
But the Bears are, right?
The Bears still were not in the hunt either. Because I think they're also 2 wins.
The Bears usually last year a couple of times they jumped other teams to get in the hunt on the.
Right.
And then any trades we want to pull a trigger on? I really don't have any trades I want to pull a trigger on.
No,
you guys. I know that I've exhausted this one, and I've said it before, and I get just blank stares from you guys every time I say it. But I would. I'll just put it this way: I would entertain a deal to move Barkley for some number ones.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone's paying a number one.
No, I don't think so either. But if we were going to get a good enough haul for Saquon, I would entertain the thought of moving him.
Yeah, it would. I think it would. Yeah, I thought about it because his name did surface right with the trade deadline and all that, and I was thinking, man, it's got to be a lot. I mean, I just feel like
that'd have to be a lot.
It'd have to be a hell of a lot for me to just be okay with it. I mean,
who
am I? I'm nobody, but just to be okay, and I don't think the Giants would do that. I think they'd be smart about it. They would, but
and then this one
minimum for Barkley would be a number one and a current good player.
Yeah.
And then this one's more of an inside joke. We'll all understand it, but Kim Drake has asked if Devin Tier is rubbing it into us that the Bills have a better record than both the Jets and the Giants, or that they beat the Giants. And my response back, if you guys know Devin Tier, that the Bills could be 5-time Super Bowl champions defending, and he wouldn't say a peep.
Not a word. No. I was texting with him during the Jets-Bill game, when they the first game of the year. I was talking a little. That was when Rodgers got hurt. He was consoling me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's too nice of a guy. He's not going to talk.
He actually apologized for the Bills beating the Giants today.
So he goes against that old adage of I'm not gonna apologize for winning. I'm not gonna apologize for winning the game.
No, that and
Bruce Coslett.
And for all of us here that know Devin Tier is the doppelganger of many doppelgangers. He's the doppelganger of Jake Delhomme. He's the doppelganger of Phil Dunphy. He's the doppelganger of Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Yep. And I know if you line up those three people, Phil Dunphy, Daniel Jones, and who's the first one?
Jake Delhomme.
Yeah, Jake Delhomme.
Yeah.
You wouldn't really say those three guys look that much alike. They have some similarities. They have skinny faces and black hair. I guess but Devin Tier somehow looks like exactly like all three of those people.
It's so true.
He does.
You guys got anything else tonight?
No, I don't have anything else, but I'm going to throw out. Are we going to do a wager on this game this weekend?
I think we need to.
I was going to say, look, we're on YouTube. Right, so we can be seen. I threw it out there the last time. The Jets win. You guys got to wear a Jet hat on YouTube for part of the podcast. If the Giants win, since I'm by myself, I'll do the Giant hat and the Giant jersey.
Do I actually have to go? I have to go out and buy one then.
I will bring it to you on Sunday. I'll bring the Jet hats.
All right, and then so what are you gonna do? Like when the Jets win, you're gonna go out to your car and hand them out? Is that how that's gonna work? And, here you go.
There you go. One for you. One for you. One for you.
Yeah. You get a Jet hat. You get a Jet hat.
Yeah, I'll wear the Jet hat. Yeah.
Yeah, I will too.
I'll sign up for that. Absolutely.
I'm gonna make you wear any Giant hat, but you're definitely wearing my 4X Thibodeau jersey.
Does anyone have one of those big helmet things that people were wearing there for a while? That crazy trend.
Don't have one.
Oh, you mean the hat one or the? Yeah. I actually have an old. That'd be funny to see Novak wearing this. But like I have one of those old crappy little plastic helmet, like giant helmets. It'd be kind of funny to see. It's like one of those little tiny Rydell, it's like a kid-size helmet. It probably wouldn't even fit on your head.
He'd look like Landetta.
Yeah, right. With a single face bar.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we almost went 2 hours tonight, so
Jesus.
We've gone long. It is a Jets-Giants preview. I get it. We are the 3 Angry Giant fans. Hit us up on Twitter @angry_3. Lots of questions this week. Guys, thanks for all the support. We were joking about Redmond, Washington, but we've gotten support from all over the country, in other countries, and our downloads, not just on audio, but also on video, are really exploding. So we appreciate all of the support you guys have given us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, keep it coming, guys.
That's it.
We'll be back to talk about the Giants win next week.
Right on.
We shall see.
Woohoo! 3-6. No, 3-5.